Okay, so to pick up where we left off, we are looking to expand this particular box or this particular middle content section that we have for our individual document. Okay, what we want to do is we want to be able to expand it all the way up to the far right-hand side that you see here. So the question is, well, how do we do that? Well, the first thing we have to do is we have to figure out, number one, how much room we have. Okay? The second thing we have to figure out is then, okay, what class or what rule do we increase? All right? What do we do to make that initial box bigger? So, we've got to be able to find the information that we want. So what we need to do is we need, first of all, as I've done here, is we need to open up our individual CSS designer. And from our CSS designer, you can see that because my cursor has got the content class selected, that my CSS designer has the rules for that particular class, okay? That particular content class. And you can see that the width right now is set to 600, okay? It is, as I said earlier, it's a fixed width, which means that it's not going to expand, it's not going to get bigger, it's not going to get smaller, it's going to stay at that exact size. Okay, so a better question now is this. Okay, so now that we know that it is 600, that's what we have, okay, great. The next question that we should ask ourselves is, okay, where does this particular div, okay, where does this div reside? Where is it? Okay, it is our content div, all right, and it's got the class of content. But where does it reside? And it actually resides inside of, and it's really easy for you to understand how this works, is if you look on the bottom left-hand corner of your individual window, your document window, you will see that the very next tag right to it, right, is called the container. So you can see that the article class content resides inside of the container. Your container is right here. So if we were to select that on the bottom right-hand or bottom left-hand corner, so go ahead and click on that, our rules will now change in our CSS designer for that. So now we see the rules for the individual container. And you can see that the container has a width of what? 960. Okay? So there you go. So the total is 960. So we know that's how much room that we have. We have 960 pixels to use, which is awesome. Okay, but what we need to keep in mind is what? Well, we need to keep in mind this. This is not 960 from here to here, right? We have another div tag that is also taking up space inside the container, and that is this guy of our other aside. Because our left aside and our content have to add up to be 960, right? Because if our aside and our content were bigger than that, then it would be bigger than the actual container that it actually resides in. So if we take a look here, we come down, we take a look at the aside. Sidebar 1 is what it's going to be. Is it a side or is it a side? No, just the aside, yeah. And the aside, or sidebar 1, they're actually both the same. That's it. Div sidebar 1 is actually the whole sidebar. The aside they put inside of it. So select sidebar 1. And the reason why I say that is if you select sidebar 1, you'll also select the aside. Okay? So if you select sidebar 1, it doesn't, you'll notice that both are the same. You'll notice that the width is 180. Okay? Can you see that? Okay. So if we've got 960, then what we would do is we take the 960, we would subtract the 180, okay, And then we would know that we have how much room left for our container. 780. Right? Is that correct? Okay. So, if we were to come back now to our container, or excuse me, to our content, and select our content. Hold on. There we go. We were to select our article class content and pull once again up our CSS properties. We could change this from 600 now to what? 780. And then when we change that to 780, then we would be flush. It would go all the way to the edge. So we can change that to 780 right now. All right? And there you go. So now that increases everything out back across. And we are good. Okay? All right. So the whole essence of this is understanding where we find the rule that we need to change and how we change it. Now I'm going to say this again as always. One of the easiest ways is going to be through the tag selector down at the bottom left-hand corner, and then through your CSS designer, okay, to actually access it. All right? Okay. So there you go. So now here's what we've done. We got rid of the right side. The right side is gone. Okay. We've now expanded out to where we have the whole entire individual text, or going from the left side all the way across. Okay? So that's good. So we're in good stead there. We're all right. Okay? So the next thing we want to do is a fairly simple thing that we want to do. We'll just do this really easy. Is that what we want now is we want to be able to do two things. First thing is we don't like that background. That background that's up there, it's kind of brownish. We don't like the brown. Right? So we want to get rid of that. Now we notice that the one that we were trying to replicate was on a white background, so we want to change it to white. Okay? Very, very simple. The other thing I want to do is I just want to change the font. I want to change the font throughout. I don't like the font whatsoever. I want to change the font throughout. Okay? So, next question is, how do we go about and how do we do that? Where do we change that? Okay? And the way that we do this is kind of understanding what it is that we are changing. Okay? Now, we are changing, first of all, the background. And that background is the background for the whole what? For the whole page, right? Okay. And we want to change the text. And the text is going to be the text for the what? The whole page, right? Okay. All right. So, what tag do we use that we know encompasses the whole page? Earlier in our discussions, we said that we have an opening tag and a bottom tag. And inside that opening tag and closing tag is everything that encompasses on the page. What is that tag? That's the body tag, exactly. Okay? And if you'll notice here on you'll notice here on your tag selector, it is the farthest tag to the left, which means that it is the tag that's on the farthest on the outside, or encompasses the most, right? So if we select that, select the body tag, you can see that as soon as you select the body tag, it's everything. It selects everything. So let's come up here to our window, and once again pull up our CSS designer. And immediately, as soon as I select my CSS designer, you'll notice that the body tag comes up and the body tag is selected, right? Which is what we want. Okay, now what's the other shortcut we know when working with our CSS designer if we want to see just the rules that are being used? What do? I don't want to see every rule. I just want to see the rules that the body tag is applying. What do I do? Show set, exactly, good answer, right? So I come up to the top here and I select show set. then as soon as I put show set, there are all of the rules that are being applied to the body tag itself. All right? And you can see that those rules are, as we say, we got margin. The margin that we have is basically the auto margin. Auto margin basically does this. It means it's going to keep it in the middle of the page. We got 960 pixels, and I want an equal margin on the left, and I want an equal margin on the right, which means that has to be center. Right? That's all that that means. Okay? There is no padding specified as of right now. You can see that the text color is set to black, which is fine. You can see that's got a background color. Hey, look at there. There you go. There's that background color. Background color that I don't like. Right? Or background color that I would like to change. I would like to have something there that I like better. Right? So I'm just going to try to put in some white. Really simple. So I can do a couple of different things. I can come down here to where it says background color. I can take my cursor and I can click. And then where I put my cursor inside here, I can delete the 42413C. Always make sure that we keep the hashtag, okay, or number sign, or whatever it is that you'd like to call it. All right, we can do that, and then we can just type in FFF. And FFF is white. And then when we type in white, there it is. Now we've got a white background. So everybody go ahead and do that, so you change your background to white. Okay? Oops. I'm moving back here for a second because I had a jumper. Okay, so now that's done. So now we got a background of white. Okay, did you access your body? You got your body tag? Okay, all right, so we want to access our body tag right there at the top. There you go. And when you do that, one of the things that makes it really easy is to see all the rules that are being applied is if we select the show set. So just select the box, there you go. So there's everything that's being done, we're good there. That's the margin. And what we're working on is changing the background color, which is this gray background color, the brown background color, which is specified right there in background color. Yep, to change it to white. So you can just click on the box, and you can find white, there you go, and then just go ahead and select it. All right, okay. Good work, good work. Okay, so that's it. The other change I want to make is I want to change the font. The only reason why I want to change the font is I just want to show you how to change the font. All right? So to change the font, once again, we've got the same situation here. We can select the body tag. And you can see that the font that we have set up is 100% 1.4 Verdana, Arial, Helvetica, blah, 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 blah. Okay? So basically, all I'm going to do is just take out Verdana, and it should go to Arial. And there you go. All right, and that's all I did. Just to change the font, show you where you would change the font. If you wanted to change the font, very easy to change the font. Okay? Alright? Now sometimes it's easier for fonts themselves, if you don't know what the fonts are, to not use the show set and to actually access the font, which is up on the top, where it says the T, you can see T. And then what this will give you the ability to do is it will give you the ability to drop down all the fonts that you have set up on your individual site, part of the software from Dreamweaver. Okay? Now the other thing is, and you'll notice that we talked about, is that if you look at this, and I'll show you real quick, here's what I did, just so you guys can all get here, is I basically went back into body, and I'm working with the body tag again, and then as opposed to having show set selected, I did not show set select, and then I just selected the T for text in the properties, which automatically brings me here, and then if you click on your font families, you can now get a drop down to select a font family, okay? Remember we briefly discussed font families, and font families do this for you. They basically set a precedent on what the font is that you're going to see. All right, first font you're going to see is going to be Arial, second one you're going to see is Arial Black. First one with the one below here is going to be Baskerville. I'll change it to that just so you can see, click off it, there you go. So the first one goes to Baskerville so far, and so on, okay? All right, We can set font families ourselves. These aren't necessarily, they are some that are predetermined, but you can set your own. You can edit them up, whatever you want to do. All right? And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come down here to font families. I'm going to click on this guy again. I'm going to come down here to what's called manage fonts. And when we go to manage fonts, it'll open up this window here for us. This is our manage fonts window. Everybody please open up your manage fonts window. We have a bunch of cool fonts that we can temporarily install on people's computers now. Actually, we'll go and we'll access them from the web. And what this gives us the ability to use is a bunch of really cool Adobe Edge web fonts. Okay? Because back in the day, right, when I say back in the day, I mean back when I started doing this, or even actually just a few years ago, you could only use a font that's on somebody's system. If somebody doesn't have the font in their system, it's the default font. Right? Everybody understands that? I mean, that's why a lot of times, anytime you see a really cool font, it's not actually a font, it's actually an image. It's an image of a font, which is fine. But not anymore. Now we can actually use fonts, and we can get those fonts from a lot of different places. One of the places that we can get them is right here, from the Adobe Edge fonts. The other place we can get them is where? A really popular place to get fonts is Google Fonts. You go to Google Fonts. Basically download a Google font, install a Google font, and run it through CSS. Very easy to do. Really a bunch of cool fonts. They're all regular. I mean, you can only do so much with a font. Really. Let me rephrase it. You can only do so much with a font and still have it be what I like to refer to as legible to the elderly. Okay? I mean, next thing you know, people are going to start writing their whole websites in captions. I mean, how appalling would that be? I mean, that's really basically what you're seeing. So we want to keep it to the point. We want to keep it fresh. We want to keep it cool. We want to keep it easy to read for everybody. You know what I mean? So that's what we do. So there's a bunch of fonts here that we can use. We can select one, all right? Any one that we want. All kinds of them. We've got them broken down here into different, whether it's a sans font, serif font, slab font, script font, a black letter, monospace, handmade, or decorative. So there's all those fonts that you can choose. Choose any one of those, and we'll use it. And then when we actually get into it, we'll spend a little class on fonts, and we'll do a little of this, and we'll show you also how to use a Google font if you want. But you'll notice here also that we've got Adobe Edge web fonts, we got local web fonts, okay, and then we've got custom font stacks. Go to the custom font stack for me. The custom font stack is where we put together our individual. Yeah, we're back at manage fonts. All right. And essentially, all I wanted to show you is this. And we'll spend a lot of time on this, so don't worry about it. But all I wanted to show you is this. You can see that this is where it's all set up for your font lists and your font families. We wanted to create a font family. We could go over here and we could create a font family. All we would have to do, these are all the available fonts that we have over here on the right-hand side. We could select the font. There's going to be my first font. There's going to be my second font. And here's going to be my third font. All right? I select that. I say done. And now that's a new font family that I have. Okay? And there it is.
Font family.
Change it up, and there we go.
That's the font family is the font that you're using in that specific website.
A font family, the best way to explain a font family is this. It's a matter of choices. All right? Essentially what it is you're setting a precedent, or you're setting, basically saying, hey, listen, here's the first font I want shown. Right? If the guy's got this font, then I want to see this font. If he doesn't have my primary font, then show the secondary font, which is the second font that's being listed. If he doesn't have that font, then go to the third font. Generally what ends up happening is sometimes they end up matching and being very similar fonts. Sometimes they're not. It doesn't matter. It's just a matter of knowing that not everybody has the same fonts on all of the same systems. Right? So this is what I want to see first. This is what I want to see second. If they don't have number 1, then go to number 2. And that's all it is. And you can set this however you would like. You can put these particular individual font families together. There's no rhyme or reason. Yes?
Okay, when you're looking at the fonts, are kind of virtually the same.
Mm-hmm.
Why is the same green?
Oh, see, you click on that one, that's light. Click on that one, that's bold. Click on that one, that's condensed. So they're actually light and bold and condensed. You just can't see the extra words that goes with them. Sorry. That's actually a good question. I didn't even really realize that. The question was this. If you take a look here, guys, we go to Manage Fonts again. And we come over to Custom Font Stacks. If you go up, you may see, if you have your window small, is your window small?
But look at American.
Oh yeah, I got you. You'll notice that, what was it, American one? There you go. Like if you take a look at American Typewriter Condensed, it says that there's like 3 of them. They all say American Typewriter Condensed, American Typewriter Condensed, American Typewriter Condensed. But they actually don't. One says light, one says bold. You just can't see that. So if you were to click on it, it will be populated in the window down below here. So as you can see, this one says American Typewriter Condensed. The next one says American Typewriter Condensed bold. So it looks like there's actually 3 of the same things, which is just click. There's just, they ran out of room, too many letters. Need a smaller font. All right, so there you go. So here's where all your fonts are. Okay, we'll work on that. We'll use some Adobe Edge Web fonts. But if we wanted to change everything across the board on the website for the font, this is where we do it. We would actually access the body tag and then change it from there. You have a question?
Well, I was just thinking that you'd probably want to similar, that's where you're going for similar fonts, right?
It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be.
And if you did, you'd want to test out all these fonts in the font family before you use them.
And that's what kind of makes font family confusing, is the fact that people think that you're going to have 4 fonts that are really, really similar, right? And hoping that whoever's working on it might have one of those fonts, but that's not the case. It's just 4 fonts that you would prefer to see. Now, do they tend to be similar? Yeah, probably. But, you know, I mean, that's just the way that it always is. I mean, the most important thing about a font is this, is that you can easily read it. I mean, that's it. You know, I mean, because it's all about the content. That's what we're all about. We're all about what needs to be said. So, yeah, so we pick something that's easy to read, can be read from a distance, and so forth and so on. But if we need to change everything, here's where we go. All right, the other thing that you'll notice a lot of, that we'll take a look at, is your line height. You want to change your line height? Once again, this is where we would do it. We would do it under the body tag. If you wanted to put more space in between each individual line, or if you wanted to have less space in between each individual line. Okay, we would change that here. And sometimes, depending on what it is that you're doing, some space is more, some space is better. Sometimes you don't need as much space, but that's where you would affect the line height. The line height would be changed there. All of this within the body tag. Okay? All right? Background color for the document, all kinds of good stuff. There we go. All right. Okay. So there you go. That will fix a couple of the other things that I wanted. We changed the font. We left the color of black. Black is fine. I don't mind black as long as you've got contrasting background of white or something along those lines, so it stands out. It's easy to read. That always works all right. Okay, and so there you have it. So that's done now. So now we've got that particular part done here. Now, one of the things we haven't discussed, which we will briefly discuss, is that one of the things we do have the ability to do if we do not do a straight white and or colored background, is we do have the ability to insert what we refer to as a background image. Okay? 2 things about background images. Background images are good. One of the best things about a background image is that it's going to tie. Okay, does everybody know what tiling means? It basically means this. A background image is going to tile, which means it's going to take up as much space as it has to. Meaning that if we put, easiest way to say it is if I have a div tag that's 100 by 100. If I put a background image in there, and it needs to take up 100 by 100, it will take up the whole space of 100 by 100, no matter what the size of the background image is. The background image could be 1 by 1, right? But it's going to just keep going until everything is covered by that image, right? Everybody understands that? That's called tiling. Okay? That's the cool thing about background images, right? The really uncool thing about background images is they tile. But they don't always have to. Okay? And what I mean when I say that is sometimes you may have a really cool particular image that you want to use, but what ends up happening is if it's not the exact size, or we don't know how to adjust it to make it the proper size, you're going to see where it ends and where it begins again. We don't like that. That's not necessarily what we like to refer to as professional. Right? Okay? So that's one of the bad things about it. So what we try to do is we try to do two things. We try to, one, think before we use background images, so we know we've got the proper image in the size, okay? Or we do the second thing that we can do nowadays, and use the biggest image we can find. Because there really isn't any problem with it now, because we're going to use it as a background image. So we don't have to worry about it taking time for it to load. Okay? Because a background image, it will load quicker. Right? So those are two things that we'll do. Alright? So if we wanted to, we could use a background image for this particular document. We are not going to use a background image. But what we are going to do is we're going to use a background image for the header tag. So we're going to show you how to put a background image in the header tag. Okay? So here's the first thing we're going to do. Okay, if you go up to where your header is, you'll notice that you've got a box there that says Insert Logo, right? Okay, that is for our logo. That's what we call an image placeholder. Image placeholder is basically just a box that holds a place of where the image would be, all right? And the reason why that is there is because we haven't set any individual rules to our header tag. What I want everybody to do is click on that, where it says Image Logo, and I want you to hit delete, and I want you to see what happens. And what happens? It's gone. What else happened? Our header got small. Yep, so go up to the top here. Scroll up to the top. Inside your document, yep. Yep. All the way up to the top. There you go. And let's click out of live view. Let's get back out of the live view. There you go. And what I want you to do is I want you to select that logo, which is Insert Logo. Just click anywhere, there you go. And I want you to hit delete. And when you hit delete, what ends up happening is that, yeah, you'll notice first two things. One, that placeholder is gone, right? But two, you'll notice that your header got real small, okay? Why did your header get real small? Well, your header got small because it's a div tag and it doesn't have any properties attached to it. So when a div tag doesn't, sorry. It's a div tag that doesn't have any specific height properties attached to it. Okay? So I have not specified, we have not specified how tall it's supposed to be. Okay? So when that is the case, generally a div tag does this. Right? It will only be as tall as whatever is inside of it. Understood? Okay? So if I've got a individual image placeholder that is, I don't know, what is it, 140 pixels tall? If it's 140 pixels tall, then it's going to be 140 pixels tall. That's how big it's going to be. When that is gone, then this particular header only becomes as big as what's inside of it. And at the time being, there's nothing inside of it. Okay? Alright? So what we're going to do is we're going to put something inside of it. First thing we're going to do is we've got a couple of images that we've already worked with, or we have worked with, but we looked at. I believe one of those images is a background image for the header. I believe so. Let me do this. I'm going to go to Window Files. And I'm going to open up my Images folder. And I have something called banner.jpg. Okay? banner.jpg is going to be the header banner that I'm going to use. Okay? All right? That's what I'm going to do. Awesome. 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 All right, so I'm going to come back in. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my cursor inside the header. So put your cursor inside the header, top box, right across. Okay? And then on the bottom left-hand side, what I'd like to do is I'd like to go down, I'd like you to use your tag selector, and I'd like you to select your header tag. So go to the bottom right, to the bottom left, and I'd like you to select your header tag. There it is. Select it. Awesome. Come over to your CSS designer. Okay? And what I want you to do is I want you to select the header class itself, which is directly below your header section, so forth and so on. It's just called header. Because when we do that, we are just selecting the header itself and not all the other ancillary tags that were on the end of it, like section, aside, article, and all that stuff. I don't want that. I just want the header. So has everybody got just the header? Okay. What we're going to do next is we're going to go into our properties. And from our properties, what I want you to do is I want you to do this. I need you to scroll down. Actually, let me do this. I get into this mode and I just keep doing it. I want you to go to the fourth icon from the left. Looks like some sort of gradient, right, at the very top. And I want you to select that, and that's your background. So if we select the background, boom, here we go. Here's the background. You can see that we've got a background color in place. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to come down to the bottom where it says, right below that, where it says background image. And where it says background image, let's go ahead, and right here where it says URL, let's click URL. And then as soon as we click URL, on the far right-hand side of there, you should have a folder where you could browse for file. Yeah, just click on it. You know, it's slow coming up there. There you go. Yep. It's slow coming up. Trust me, it's on the far right side. It's a folder. You click on that folder, it will enable you to browse through the file that you want to put in place. So if you select it, it'll automatically pull up our images folder. There it is. And what we're going to do is we're going to select banner.jpg. Everybody see that? Banner.jpg. So select banner.jpg and select open. And when we do that, all right, there we go. That looks good. So now if you look at the top, what do you got? You've got a banner going across the top of about a, what's that? Maybe a 10 pixel spread of green, that's it. Okay? I trust you, or trust me, or yes, you know, I do trust you. But trust me when I tell you that this particular image is larger than this. It is not actually this particular small. It is larger than this. The reason why we are only seeing this is because why? It's because once again there is no height that is specified for this particular div tag, okay, or this divider tag. So what I want you to do is I want you to put your cursor, and we're going to do two things. First thing we're going to do is we're going to do this completely wrong, because wrong is fun, and then we'll do it right. Okay? Put your cursor inside that div tag, and now I want you to hit the return key like 3 or 4 times. There we go. And as we do that, you can see that this particular image, it is there. Okay? So that particular image is there. And as you can see, as it gets bigger, it will tile. Everybody see that? Okay? So you'll end up with multiple images there. Okay? Doesn't matter how many you place in there, it'll go forever. Alright? That's basically it. Okay? We don't like that. We don't like that because that's not the right way to do it. Alright, so let's hit delete so we get all the way back up to the top. So where we just have one particular individual div there. Okay? And what we need to do is we need, or we should have, this is what we should have done first, is find out how tall it actually is. Okay? Yes, sir. Yeah, just hit delete. Just keep hitting delete. Keep hitting, there you go. That's good right there. What's that? You probably had something to the top. Good. Repeat. No repeat, but no repeat. No repeat. Background repeat now. Repeat that, repeat Y, you got no repeats. Good. All right. Okay? Now, here's what we want to do. First thing we want to do is we got to figure out kickoff. Now, I think it's, what did we say size this thing was? 130? Or how tall? 130? Is that what we said?
No, 180 by 90.
The actual image we just put. Yeah, but that's 180 by 90, but I wanted to see how tall this image is. So let's do this. Let's do this. Okay, so let's select our header. Let's select our header div tag. Okay, select our header div tag, get inside there. And what I want to do is now, I want to set the height, and I want to set the height for this. I'm going to set it to a specific amount of pixels. And you said it was 180?
Yeah.
Let's try 180, just for giggles. Did it? Yeah, that looks right. I think you're right. I don't know what it is, but we're going to try. We'll put in try 130 and see what 130 says. Because technically, in a perfect world, we'd go back and open up the image in some sort of image editor, right? And then when we open it up in the image editor, we'd see exactly what the size it is, and then we'd be all good. All right? So here you go. So 130, so there it is. So now it's the place. So now in this situation that we're in right now, we don't have to worry about tiling for this particular image, for the simple fact that we can't see anything under it anyway, because the div tag itself is only going to be 130 pixels tall. Everybody understand that? Does that make sense? Okay, but we can, if we would like, when we come back into the header tag, all right, and from your header tag and your rules for the header, if you go back to your individual CSS designer, select the background, which we just did. Here is our background. Down here we have what's called a background repeat. Okay? So we'll go about a little bit further down, there's something called a background repeat. And we have the ability to do multiple things. We can do repeat, which means it's just going to repeat. We can repeat on the x-axis, which means it's going to repeat east and west. Yeah, sir. Yeah. Yeah. Yep, there you go. Okay, yep, let's go into, you want to come into your, not your background, but in your header tag, which is good. But you want to come, actually, select your header tag. There you go. And you want to come up into your layout, which is at the very top. There you go. And then your height right there, type in 130 pixels. There you go. Yes, sir. Yeah, okay. So let's click into your, hit cancel for the time being. Okay, we're going to set, okay, so you got it there. Let's put it, okay, so it's putting it in the, okay, so we want to make sure that we got the right direction. Put your cursor inside there, and click on your header tag on the bottom left. There we go. So now we're working with the header tag. Okay, so what you want to make sure that you do is just put it in the header, let the header section, footer, article, so there you go. So now go through the same steps, and you'll be fine. Yep. You're welcome. Okay, so this being said, now that we've got this in place, we can do a couple things. We can, as I said, repeat, which means it's going to repeat wherever it needs to repeat it. We can repeat it on either axis. We can repeat it on the x-axis, which is east-west, or we can repeat it on the y-axis, which is north-south, or the very last one, which is the single box that you see here. We can do what is referred to as a no repeat. And when you do a no repeat, it's just going to show that image and not repeat it at all. Now, as I stated, this particular header is only going to be 130 pixels tall anyway. So we don't have to worry too much about the repeat, but it's still safe and smart to select the no repeat, so you don't have to worry about seeing it again. So on the far right-hand side, let's select the single box for the no repeat. Okay? All right. Good. So there you go. So now we've got this in place. That's pretty cool. Good. All right. So now what I want you to do is I want you to do this. Okay. I want you to take a look at the document that we have set up right here right now. Bring your windows down if you could. I want you to be able to see the far right-hand side of your header tag. You take a look at your header and you see the far right side, what do you see? You see a little sliver of what? A little sliver of ugly. Okay. You see a little sliver of what we refer to as the brown, okay, which is the background color for this particular header div tag. Okay? Why is that little slice of brown there? Exactly. The image we are working with has a width of 900 and how many pixels? Anybody know? Anyone? 900. What's that? Well, no, the image we're using, the background image we're using has a pixel width of.
Open in Photoshop.
Open in Photoshop. I'll give you a hint. 950. Yep, it's 950 pixels wide. Okay? Which means that it's 10 pixels too short. Okay? So there's a couple of ways to fix this. Number one way to fix it, really to be the easiest way to fix it, is to just adjust it. Right? To make it slightly bigger, but we don't want to do that. The other way to do it, what we would do is we could probably put maybe like some green or something along those lines inside as a background, and that would kind of fix it a little bit, but we don't want to do that. The proper way to fix it is to adjust everything to make everything 950 pixels. Right? Meaning that we take the individual container, which we know is 900 and what? We take it to be 960, and we adjust it to be 950. So here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to put your cursor anywhere inside of your document. I would then like you to select either from your tag selector down at the bottom, div container, or from your CSS designer container, either or, you can get there one of two ways. And when your rules come up, where it specifies the width of 960, please go and change that to 950. Right? And watch the chaos ensue. Uh-oh, what happened? What happened? Come on, what are you talking about? That's crazy talk.
That's because it's bigger.
That's absolutely crazy talk. So we take 950, and what happens? Well, you know, it wasn't too long ago that a very wise man once made a statement that specified that if everything was floating to the left, and that what was floating to the left was too big and couldn't fit into a particular document, it would get pushed down the bottom. Okay? Because this right here that you see is 760 pixels wide, right? This is 180 pixels wide. That makes 960. Yeah, 781 and 60. Okay? So what ends up happening is now we have to do one of two things to make this fit alongside of this. We either one have to make this, i.e. the sidebar, smaller, or two, we have to make the content smaller. Right? And we have to make it smaller by what? 10 pixels. That's it. That's all. And I guarantee you that if we do that, what will end up happening is that it will once again float back over to the right, and to the left, excuse me. And it will be in the right place. So I'm going to select my div class content. Whoops. My properties back my CSS designer. Oh, where's my CSS? I'm gonna open up my CSS designer. Here we go. I'm gonna pull it right over here. Here's my content, and where it says 780, I now adjust that to say what? 770. And when I adjust it to 770, the magic is restored. Is it not? My magic isn't. My magic isn't. My magic isn't restored. Oh, it just didn't save it. Mine didn't take. 770 into my content. And there you go. Now the magic's restored. Yay! So now you can see that we are back in good stead. Right? All right. Okay, so the case in point is that's an excellent exercise in how to figuring out that we've got two individual sides that need to coexist for them to be able to fit inside that one big box. Okay? Same thing would happen as if we were to go in right now, if we were to adjust the sizing of any part of that particular content to make it bigger. Padding, margin, border. We made it even 1 pixel bigger. It would not fit because it is then larger than the 950, or that plus the sidebar is now larger than the 950, which it sits in. Okay, that makes sense? Awesome. Okay, so we got that done. So that's pretty cool. So now we're getting closer. We got our banner. We got our white background. We got something relatively similar to the text. Let's hit Command S to save this. And let's jump back into layout finished and see what else is different. All right, so let's come back in here and see what else is different. One of the things you'll notice is that, yeah, they got those navigation. Ooh, that's great. All right. The other thing you'll notice is that the footer's got green and it's got a specific style to it, so we'll have to change that. The other thing you'll notice is that it does have that butterfly, okay? That butterfly's in place. You may wait on the butterfly. And then the other thing you'll notice is that directly below the header, we have a new individual div tag that we don't have on ours, which is our horizontal navigation. You see that? Okay, so what we need is we need to somehow figure out how to create our horizontal navigation. So, one of the things we have to do is we have to put in a new div tag. What's the easiest way to do that? That's tough, right? Yeah. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Let's jump back into the other document. All right, so let's go back into the document we're working on. First page.html. Let's pull up first page.html. And here's what we got. Okay, well here's the really only tricky thing about when we want to insert a div tag. The tricky thing about inserting a div tag is getting it in the right position. Meaning getting it where we want it to come up. Okay? Because there's two ways to do this. One, if we're good, which we will be, we're not now, because we're not, but we are going to be good, then we'll know exactly where we need to place it inside the code. We'll be able to open up the code, and we'll know that, hey, that's exactly where I want it to go, and then we'll just click inside the code, and that's where we'll put it. All right? And there'll be no issue whatsoever. It'll be the easiest thing we've done. But if we don't know how to do that, which we don't as of yet, or if we're just beginning, how do we place the cursor in between the opening and closing, or excuse me, between the closing and the opening of a div tag? Because we want to put it between the closing of one and the opening of another, right? Okay, so let me show you what we do. I want you to take your cursor, and I want you to stick your cursor and select. Oh, come on. Can you select it? Don't be kidding me. There we go. Put your cursor inside the header, and I want you. I'm trying to select the header tag. I couldn't select the header tag. I want you to select the header tag. Okay? And when you select the header tag, you'll notice that down at the bottom your header tag is selected. You'll see that, right? But what we want is we want to be able to insert a div tag after this tag, after this header tag, okay? But yet before the next tag that comes up, which is the sidebar, okay? The sidebar 1. So here's an easy way to do it. What you really want to make sure is that your cursor is in the right place, okay? So what we can do is we can select the header tag, and then after we select the header tag, we can hit the right arrow key. And if you hit the right arrow key, and you are in split view, are you in split view? Is everybody in split view? If you're in split view, you see it's a lot better. If you're in split view, you'll notice that your cursor is now after the closing of the header tag, and directly before, okay, the div class sidebar. All right? Everybody see that? So now we've got our cursor in the proper position. See, it's really important to put the cursor in the right place, because what we're doing is what you call what you see is what you get. And what you see is what you get means that it's a WYSIWYG, which means that whatever we're going to insert, it's got to go where? It's got to go wherever the cursor is. We put the cursor somewhere, and that's where it's got to go, wherever we're going to insert. And because we're going to insert this div tag, we have to be able to get our cursor in the proper place, which is between the header and the div class sidebar. All right? Here's what I'm going to do now. I want you to go up to insert. And I want you to select Insert Div. Now, there's a couple of different things that we can do here. And I've taught this a couple of different ways. And one of the things we could do is we could insert a navigation bar, which would automatically name the navigation bar. But what ends up happening is that there may be some rules that come with the navigation bar that are already set in place, which I don't like, and then we have to change them anyway. So what I essentially do is I say, we'll just insert a blank, plain div, right? So it's just a blank, plain div. Now, one of the things you see here is it says, where do you want to insert it? It says where? At insertion point. Okay, at insertion point means where your cursor is, right? So that's where we want to put it. So we're good there, right? Okay, now, we can do a couple of different things here. We can apply a class to it automatically if we had a class to apply to it. We haven't talked about creating classes and pseudo selectors and compound selectors and tags and all that stuff, so we'll just wash that for the time being. Right? The other thing we could do is we could give it what's called an ID. Okay? Now, before we go any further, I'm going to say this, and we'll work on this also, so don't worry about it. We will work with 4 different types of selectors that we can have in CSS. 4 different, okay? First type we'll work with is called a class. A class can be applied to anything, right? I can apply it a class a million times to a million different things. It doesn't matter, okay? There are going to be what we refer to, as I said, pseudo-selectors. Pseudo-selectors are basically what we refer to as a heading 1 inside of the content inside of the container. Very, very specific, okay? Pseudo-selector or compound selector. We'll call them compound selectors from now on. That's number 2. Number 3 is a tag, just a regular tag, like your H2 tag, H3 tag, any HTML tag whatsoever. Your 4th is an ID, okay? And your ID is basically only applied once and only apply to that ID, correct? Because if you had an ID for a div tag and you called it something and then made a bunch of rules, and then you applied those rules to another div tag, it would go where? It would go in the same place, right? Because it's the same ID. Everybody understand that? In this particular situation, right, and don't worry about it because we'll, like I said, we'll cover more. But in this particular situation, because it's going to be our horizontal navigation and there's only going to be one of them, we can use an ID, right? So let's give it an ID, and let's give it an ID of, I don't think they have it in place. No. So let's give it an ID of horizontal nav or HORZ nav, something along those lines. Okay? HORZ underscore NAV. That is what we're going to call this, right? And then we just simply click OK. We're not going to apply any rules to it for the time being. We're just going to click OK. And we click OK, and look what happens. We now have a box, right? And that box should be between your header, and that box should be between your header, and between your header, and between your sidebar. Now, don't everybody, whoa, 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 whoa. If it's not there, don't panic for the time being. I'll show you a really quick fix, all right? But that's where it should be. If it's not, that's okay, all right? But don't start putting away at stuff and trying to change it. It's okay if it's not. And the reason why it's okay is because it's a really good exercise right now to show you exactly what it is that we're doing, all right? So let's take a look up here on my code view for me, please. Everyone. All right, here we go. If we take a look and I put my cursor right here, you can see that my div horizontal nav information is right there. All right? Okay, mine's on line 148 for the time being. You can see that my line 147 closes header, and my line 149 opens div class sidebar. Right? Everybody look at where yours is. Okay? If yours is not there, all right? Okay? Don't panic. Because wherever yours is, all right? If yours is, say, up here, between div class container and opening class header, right? So if yours is, say, line 45 or something to that effect, right? Okay? Don't worry about it. Because all you have to do is highlight the text, right, wherever it is, and then just drag it outside the header tag. What you got? Hit Command Z. That's the other thing too. You hit a button, something happens, hit Command Z. That's all you gotta do. It'll take you one step back. Right? Always, always. So here's the thing. So, and I'm just gonna show you this. I'm gonna do this with you right now. If this is what you have, yours looks like this. Right? Right? Yours looks like this right here that we have up here. And yours is inside the head tag. That's fine, don't worry about it. Right? Because all we gotta do is this. You see where mine is right here? ID for horizontal nav goes here. There it is. There's my tag. My tag's on 145. It's inside the opening of the header tag. I need it to be outside of the header tag. So it has to be past the closing header tag. So all I have to do is come up here, select the div tag itself in code view. Okay? So everybody do this if this is what you're looking at. Go ahead and do this. Highlight the text, right, in your code view. Highlight all the codes, and then just left click and drag it outside the header tag, the closing header tag on line 147, and click back, and then we're all good. Right? Okay? Yep. So just take it just outside the header tag. Take it right. Just left click, drag, just left click. All right, real left. There you go. And just drag it right there. You got it. Right. Outside the header tag. Yep. Let go right there. And now click. And just click anywhere in the document. And there you go. And you're all set. Okay? Yes? Okay. So if we take a look and see where this is, okay, you have, okay, this comes right here. First of all, we're going to move this to there. There you go. Okay. Yours is actually up at the top, which is awesome. Okay? So what we want to do is we want to take the code, because here is the code for this div tag right there. See that? And it's inside of the header. We want to get it outside the header, so we can highlight. So that text is highlighted. So just left click and take it outside the closing header tag. Just drag it down. There you go, right there. Good. Now let go. And awesome. And now we're all set. Okay? Yeah. How are we doing? Okay. There it is. Okay. Yep. Yes. There you go. Right now, just click outside of it. There you go. You're all good. Okay. Outside. Point of the matter is, and the reason why I was happy that this happened and we could do this exercise is just to show you that, hey, it's HTML. Opening tag, closing tag. Nothing fancy. We didn't have to do anything spectacular. We just drag some text, got it outside the tag, and put it in the right place, exactly where we wanted it to go. Because we knew that it had to be outside the header, the closing header tag, right? And before what we referred to as our div class sidebar 1 tag. And as long as it was there, it's in a good place. All right? Okay? Now, next thing I want you to do is I want you to do this. I want you to highlight just the text for content for ID horizontal div goes here. Just the text. I do not want you to highlight the whole entire div tag. Just the text, and then I want you to hit delete. Okay, everybody hit delete? Everybody hit delete? Delete, 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 delete. Keep it, hit delete. And then click. Everybody good? Okay, hit delete, hit delete, hit delete. You hit delete, hit delete. Now click over here. You got to click back in. You got to click on there. There we go. Good, good, good. Good, good, good. Everybody good? Good. All right. Okay, so what happens? What happened to your div tag?
Well, the text.
The div tag is still there, but what happened? It did shrink. Why did it shrink? Or why did we not see it? Because there's nothing inside of it, and we didn't what? We didn't specify a width or a height. Excuse me, not a width, a height. All right. And if you don't specify a height, and there's nothing inside of it, the div class, the div tag is there, but it doesn't necessarily exist. You don't see it. All right. So here's what we're going to do. All right. Let's go to Window, CSS Designer. All right. And what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead . I suppose we could have used that. They didn't use it, did they? Oh yeah, they did right there. Ha ha. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I was just looking at the rules there. And we could have went in and inserted a nav. And the reason why I didn't want to insert a nav is because if we inserted a nav, there are already rules being applied to a nav. And then it would have taken those rules and then we would have changed those rules and it looked really goofy. So instead, as I said, I'm just creating them and put rules ourselves to rules. I'll show you that in a second. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. You've got your style selected, correct? You've got all of your selectors there. What I want you to do is I want you to hit the plus sign, and I want you to add a selector. In your CS, you got to be in your CSS. Select style for all of your individual styles, right? And now all of your space servers. I don't know. You're fine. You're okay. You got it. Drag this up. You're good here, just drag it so yep. Okay, so select style. Okay, and when you select style, it's going to bring up all of the rules that we have, correct? All the selectors. But you'll notice that if you look at that, we don't see anything there for the horizontal nav, right? Correct? There's nothing there. Why? Because we haven't applied any rules to it yet. We haven't given it any properties, anything along those lines. So what I want you to do is at the top there where it says selectors. Everybody see where it says selectors? I want you to hit the plus sign. We're going to add a selector. Okay? All right? Now, when we add a selector, here's what's going to happen. First thing that happens is this. Automatically, all right, this line is going to be populated with wherever your cursor is. Okay? And it's going to give you what we refer to as the whole, what's the word? It'll be the whole path coming to where you are. It'll be the whole cascading path. Okay? So what we have is you can see that right now I'm in the horizontal nav. I'm in the ID horizontal nav. That is inside what we consider the class container, right? That's what shows up. Everybody got that? Okay, we good there? Everybody good? Okay. This is what we like to refer to as a bit too specific. And the reason why it's too specific is because we're working with an ID. So that ID, horizontal nav, is only going to be used once. So I don't necessarily have to specify the horizontal nav that's inside everything that's the container. I can just use the horizontal nav. So we can get rid of the container part right here. Okay, so I can just put my cursor inside there, and I can delete everything in front of the hashtag back. Okay? So I can delete all of that, and then as soon as that's done, just click on the right-hand side. Because as soon as you click on the right-hand side, you'll then be able to apply the properties that you want to this particular individual ID for this particular horizontal nav. And here's what I want you to do for me. All right? First things first. We're going to go up to height. And in the height, we're going to put in pixels. And let's make this 40 pixels line. Does that sound good? All right? So let's make this 40 pixels tall. I like 40. 40 is a good number. So we'll make it 40 pixels tall. The other thing I would like to do is I would like to, where the text is, select the text. And I believe they have, for the text color, some sort of a, I don't know, like a whitish yellow or something like that. Right? So for the text, where the color of the text is, let's just pick something that's whitish, yellowish, something. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just something similar. That'll work. That's fine with me. I don't really know. It's cold. It's too cold. They give exact numbers up there, but I'm not going to hunt for exact numbers because I don't have time. All right? So we'll do that. Okay, so we'll give it that. Down where it says text align. Text align basically is where we're going to start the text. So we can align the text left, right, center. Okay? So what I want to do is I want to start this text to the right. So we're going to align the text to the right. So select text align right. Okay? Under your text. All right? And so what that means is we're going to work from right to left as opposed to left to right. Okay? And then the only other thing I think that we're going to do is let's put a background color in on this guy. So,
090.
yeah, we'll come up to background. And where we got background color, we're going to put in a green. And we can type in 090 for the color green. 090. There's my green. I like that. Click off of it. And click OK. And there you go. So now you'll have something that looks like this. We got a height of 40. We got a background color of green. We've got a text that's aligned to the right. And we just need some sort of off color so you can see it. This has to be a color that stands out against green. Probably would work well with white or something like that. Yes, sir. What you got? Yeah, scroll down. Scroll up. All right, scroll down. All right, scroll up. All right, get your select the plus sign. Yeah, there you go. Select the plus sign. Okay, just keep that. Don't worry about it. Okay, let's make sure that we get our cursor inside of. Oh. Okay? Well, the good news is that it's easy to put back in place. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, that's what it apparently has. Now it's gone. It says gone. So what we'll do is we'll just do the same thing. We want it to be here between the header and between the div class. So from here, we'll just do the same thing. Insert div tag, add insertion point, name it horizontal map. No box. Yeah, that's going to be that. And you can do with the score or something along those lines if you want. There you go. Awesome. Okay, so there it is. All right. So now go to Window, CSS Designer. Okay, from here I want you to click on Style. This will give you everything you have. Okay, there's everything. Awesome. So now I want you to click on the plus sign there. We're going to create a new. There it is, and there's your container and the horizontal map. So just take care of the container. Yep. Just highlight right there, delete back, all the way back with that dot. Yep, exactly. Good, one more hit, one more delete. There you go. And now we just click over here, and now we can put the rules in. So now, would you just help me put the rules up? Yes, sir. Okay, where are we at? Let's see what we got. Okay, so you got your header, you're good there, that's fine. Okay, so now what you want to do is you want to insert that horizontal map. So, okay, so no, this is fine, because anytime you're inside the header itself and your header tag is selected, what we want is we want the next div tag will be inserted to be outside of the header, yet before the side. That way it'll put right across the top. Okay? So now just hit your left arrow, your right arrow key on the cursor. And now if you'll notice on your right arrow key, this is essentially what we want to do. Right? Okay? So now just go to insert. Up at the top. Insert a div. Okay, when you insert that div, we'll give it an ID. We'll give it an ID of horizontal map or something like that. No spaces. You do an underscore if you like. There you go. Click OK. All right, so there it is. So now your horizontal map's in place. Okay? So now from here, click on Style. Because this is your CSS, everything comes up. If you pull this up, here are all your selectors here. We need to add a new selector. We need that new selector to represent the horizontal map. So if you hit the plus sign, that'll give us a new selector. It automatically populates it with the ID of the horizontal map, which is what we want. We don't need that. We just delete that. Okay, make sure you get the dot that's there too, exactly. And now click over here on the right hand side. And just go inside your properties. Yep. And now you can just apply the properties that you want. Give it that green background, make it a height of 40. Make the text align to the right. And that's about it. And fine. You can make the text just white, that's fine. One second, right? Yes. Okay. This is fine. Yeah, you got right here. Here's your horizontal map. That's great. Put your cursor here. Okay, so you put our cursor here. Pull your CSS design. Okay. And if we now hit Style, these are all the selectors that we have. You have the horizontal map selected there. Okay, so now. Here's the first thing. So you know that says horizontal map. Let's do this. And now I want you. What I want you to do is I want you to put a number sign. Yeah, that number sign is what actually identifies it as an ID, and that's what we gave it here. And we gave it an I. See how it said div ID equals horizontal? That's what that does. So now if we call it, now it automatically does. So you applied everything correctly, but when we were taking everything back, you just took out the number sign. You need the number sign. Yep. Yes, sir. You got a space right here. Right here at the top. Okay, so this is where we're at right here. in your header, you've got one space there. There you go. And all it was is just the fact, because we specified a height for the header, okay? So then you put a non-breaking space underneath it, so that's why. So what you actually saw was inside of the header, but it looked like it was outside of the header because of the, right? Okay, awesome, good, good, good. So everybody get it done? You good? All right, everybody hit Command S to save it. And go home. Command S, save it. Well, actually, are there any questions before you all go home? We good? We okay? Pretty good? Because keep in mind that this is something that, as I said, we will spend an enormous amount of time on. I mean, this is the beef of the class, what we're doing right now. We will continue to work within the CSS mode. We will continue to work within the CSS designer mode. We will continue to create new rules, old rules, all kinds of stuff. All right? So continue to look at Chapter 4 and Chapter 5 again. And when we come back next week, we will continue replicating or trying to replicate the document that was already built that we opened up tonight. Okay? All right. Good, good, good.
I was going way behind, so I'm
Okay.
really stuck.
Okay, hold on just a second. We can give you a little help. Let me make sure that I just want to stop.